New SMEE title drop, boys. Time to get down and dirty. In Lovepical Poppy, the Yaotome siblings, Tetsuya, and his sister Suzuka have lived a reserved life, mostly due to the incredible debt their father has accumulated, and because of this, don't want for much, besides a stable future. Unfortunately, that goes up in flames as the story begins with them staring in disbelief at their apartment, now quite literally ablaze. With no job and now no place to live, Tetsuya must find a way to navigate his uncertain future for both his and Suzuka's sake. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is BruceGoneLoose, and I think it's about time that we look at SMEE's most recent slice of life comedy moege known as Lovepical Poppy. Though destitute at first, very quickly the problems get solved in the most moege fashion ever. Suzuka moves to her school dormitory, thankfully with free rent due to her astounding grades, and Tetsuya joins her, getting the job as a live-in dorm mother after some obvious discontent from the roomers that live there. Simultaneously, they both work at Honeyberry, a cafe connected to the dorm with the purpose of giving its residents work experience. All of this being possible thanks to Spica Hoshikuzu, the carefree, wacky owner who hosts mock death games in her free time, presumably to play with the many people who are in debt to her, which I pretty much assume Mr. Beast will be 5 years from now. These people are in crippling debt, and the last one to survive, living in the most dangerous jungle in Africa, gets $1 million! For the most part, this is a pretty typical setup, but for SMEE, who in the past has been great with pacing slice of life with its signature comedy, thankfully it's no different for Lovepical Poppy, which notably has been made for SMEE's 15th anniversary. But to encase my point further, let's talk about the characters and the common route. Lovepical Poppy has a well-rounded cast of characters, but that doesn't mean they aren't unique, and Tetsuya briefly meets them all before moving into the dorm. Miyuki Nugawa is an upcoming influencer with lots of pride and a large ego. She meets Tetsuya by chance one day on his way to get Suzuka's dorm arrangements set up, but gets completely shunned by him, leading to her inferiority complex to flare up along with her temper. If your tsundere radar isn't beeping, you better get that calibrated. She's a bratty, needy makeup influencer, and she'll make you know it, touting her popularity, cozying up to fans, and doing various streams and makeup sponsorships. I know your game, you. Any content creator who promotes things they get for free is usually a shill and a hack. By the way, thanks to Kagami Games, who gave me a review code for Lovepical Poppy. They are a pretty new visual novel publisher with multiple upcoming releases you won't want to miss. Tamaki Kotobuki is the headstrong president of the Hoshikuzu girls' dorm, and because of her diligent and serious nature, is trusted upon as their leader. When doubt is cast upon Tetsuya's application to be the dorm mother by everyone, she stays level-headed and directs the conversation in a way that ultimately gets Tetsuya accepted. Though she has a childish side, which she thinks she hides well, which is known to the rest of the dorm. Nozomi Omi is an upbeat and friendly senpai to most of the dorm girls, known for being quite competent, until Tetsuya enters the picture and she becomes a clumsy mess. Tetsuya changed her life many years ago, though of course Tetsuya doesn't remember, so like Tamaki, she vouches for him when applying to be the dorm mother. As the classic childhood friend, she unapologetically vies for Tetsuya's attention, or put in another way, she's thirsty as fuck. Circling back to the beginning, Suzuka Yaotome is Tetsuya's sister that has been glued to the hip to her brother since as long as she can remember. While she can be sarcastic and stern with her brother at times, the relationship is quite close, but she laments that Tetsuya can't focus more on his own life, and thus hopes her time at the dorm and working at Honeyberry will teach her to be more independent. While that covers the main heroines, there are two side heroines. Ayako, the older manager at Honeyberry that, while extremely capable, can also turn into quite the cynic when talking about life, and Tampopo, whose gyaru and friendly tendencies keep the mood of those around her firmly chill. Supporting characters such as Honeyberry's chef Kuma and the many rumors are also quite prevalent throughout the plot. The common route of Lovepical Poppy follows Tetsuya's day-to-day life as dorm mother and worker at Honeyberry for the most part, dealing with his boss's crazy antics, learning to live in a girl's dorm, and eventually getting the nickname Mom, and trying to improve himself in general. The common route is about 10 to 12 hours long, and I'd recommend you enjoy it because it definitely has some of the funnier bits of humor overall. It flows relatively naturally and gives each girl their own spot in the limelight. As soon as I began to think, man, I haven't seen seen Tamaki in a while, she would be the focus in the following scene. In that sense, it's a tad formulaic, but I'm not about to complain about a formula I purposely experienced 100 times previously. The interactions between the cast are definitely the highlight here, and because of that, I would not have minded if the common route were longer, because when it comes to the heroine routes, I have a lot of mixed opinions. At least getting into the routes themselves was relatively easy. It would have been nice to have more choices in the common route though, especially considering Lovepical Poppy's gimmicks, which I'll talk about later. The only choices I can remember making are accepting castration and saying I like men, but even if I wanted to roleplay as Alan Turing, a few more choices would have been nice. The other main choices come exactly at the end of the common route, which from there the novel will essentially guide you to which heroine route you want to pursue. I quite enjoyed the common route, and I think it was my favorite part of my Lovepical Poppy experience. Now let's get to the romancing. The heroine routes are all about 3 hours long, with the side heroine routes being about half that, give or take. While I was excited to get into them, I'm not completely sure I love them after experiencing all of them. So let's talk about the reason why that is, and then I'll get into the specifics of my thoughts on each route. The heroine routes are again very formulaic, most starting with a pool scene and quickly progressing from there. While in some of these routes, the fast-paced romance into H scenes can make sense, such as with Nozomi and to a minor extent Suzuka, some of them felt very forced, such as with Ayako. This is another point for lengthening the common route, because they really should have added more romantic build-up between the characters. Sure, it would have been great if this could be foreshadowed by looking into a heroine's thoughts, or with extra scenes from the heroine's point of view, maybe taking place at nighttime. Since the visual novel is a moege, the routes are mainly focused on slice of life and have very little in the matter of conflict. This in of itself isn't bad, but with the routes having less comedy for the most part, and mostly disappearing the other heroines, I began to lose interest after reading a couple of routes. Let's talk about the routes in the order I read them. Miyu's route I found to be a pretty decent route to start with, though I wouldn't be surprised if people found her character insufferable. I can respect the way this route starts because it's instigated by Miyu and made me like her more, but once the romance occurs, she drops her Tsun completely and goes 100% Dure, being extremely needy, clingy, and overall bratty. It's actually almost refreshing how she drops all pretenses and acts completely shameless. I'll give this route an A. Tampopo's route, being one of the shorter ones, I found to be pretty decent, H scenes included. It ended up being the one with the most interesting conflict, unfortunately being solved immediately. Tampopo should have had main heroine status, and I would have traded her that with Nozomi or Suzuka any day. A for effort. Tamaki's route was the one I found the most enjoyable, and was the highlight of the heroine routes for me. It's not because she calls Tetsuya Oni-chan at one point, I swear, but that may be part of it. I appreciate that while she is seen as dependable, she has her own childish side and flaws that make her relatable. She ended up being my favorite heroine, and I'm giving her route an S. For the record, I am not a lolicon. Nozomi's route flows the best from the common route due to her being in love with Tetsuya and making advances towards him for most of it. So I think if you like her character, you'll be very happy with this route. As for me, I have to give the writer some respect for making Nozomi a ditzy, milquetoast, gluttonous, childhood friend character, because they put every single character trait I hate into a heroine. Her route is fine, but my bias is firm. C. Also, this doesn't directly correlate with her route, but it's a shame we don't get to see Nozomi's disappointment, or any heroine's disappointment for that matter, if you don't pick them. It makes the heroine's sudden flare-up of feelings in their respective routes feel even flimsier. Ayako's route is in line with the better ones, mostly carried by Ayako's character and not exactly the route itself, which mostly devolves into her depreciating herself due to her age. This one deserves an A as well. Lastly, Suzuka's route gets a B. As much as my past videos may indicate otherwise, I'm not some jolly chimp who's a folly simp when it comes to incest. I think Suzuka's route has the best H scenes, the best humor, and the best ending, but when it comes bundled together with character assassination, it just didn't sit right with me. The literal whole point of her character growth is to not rely so much on her brother, and then the route reverses that. This is the same whiplash I got from Mihiro in Wagamama High Spec, but arguably even worse. The whole everybody just accepts the incest thing is kind of getting old too. At least kind of make it a plot point, like Yosuke no Sora or Saku Saku for God's sake. I might be a degenerate, but I do have standards, and I appreciate coherent characterization. If you can help it, leave her route for last, because at that point, you'll at least have forgotten how the common route ended, and it'll flow better. I think that mostly sums up my thoughts, so let's move on to the unique aspects of Lovepical Poppy. There are a couple of features of Lovepical Poppy that are advertised in its store pages, such as getting to know the girl's thoughts or experiencing optional nightly events from a heroine's perspective, but I'll go through them in order and tell you why I'm indifferent about them. Throughout the story, occasionally the heroines will be thinking, denoted by ellipses both in the text box as well as in the thought bubble that appears beside their head, and clicking on this thought bubble lets you see their thoughts. I guess this is the replacement for the anime girl quietly says her thoughts out loud and protagonist doesn't hear it trope, but it was kind of annoying to me. Their thoughts were usually obvious or unneeded, and more importantly, my brain is hyper-programmed to just click next when I see ellipses in the text box, so then I had to jump back to the ellipses again, click on the thought bubble, all for internal dialogue that wasn't that important. The nightly events from heroines' perspectives were better because they have actual dialogue and lead up to the next scene, but I feel like this was huge missed potential. If the common route had more choices with some sort of point system, this would have been a great way to track your progress. As it is, it's just a couple of extra scenes here and there that, while nice, could be skipped with no consequence. These two mechanics combined really feel like they were made for a visual novel that has a lot of choices. But Lovepical Poppy isn't that, so they just feel like unneeded gimmicks. There's one more, so let's start talking about H scenes. As far as H scenes go, I feel like Lovepical Poppy is on the better end of things. Between all routes, there is a decent amount of variety in them, which I can appreciate. Suzuka's in particular were pretty great, which works out for degenerates like me and you. And I know there's a lot of you, because Suzuka's route completion achievement has the highest completion rate. The last main feature can be found during these H scenes, making them interactive as you can click around to touch different areas of your respective heroine, though it's pretty streamlined anyway, and eventually you'll get the option to go to the next scene. I am completely indifferent to this feature, and as someone not interested in the H scenes of every heroine, it made quickly going through them more of a pain. There were two notable things about Lovepical Poppy's art to me. The first is that it's a bit different from SMEE's previous titles, or at least the two I've read, in that it's more moe blobby than before. While I like to complain about moeges, the art usually isn't the problem, and I think Lovepical Poppy's art looks pretty good. Some people hate the modern anime style look. I don't. It's cute. The second is more of a nitpick, but I couldn't help but notice that in Ayako's H scenes, she looks almost like the youngest character besides the loli. While this isn't necessarily a problem, it always brings me back to thinking, what's the point? Do people get off to older characters who look like they are 18 if they have a number beside the word age that is greater than 25? I don't really get it. If I had a complaint about the art, or in this case lack thereof, there are rumors in the girls' dorm that go up to rumor K, meaning there is at least 11 of them, and while I wasn't keeping track of their personalities, it's kind of annoying to have 11 reoccurring characters without sprites. At the very least, they could have had the generic female-looking sprite shadow in 11 different colors at the bottom left when they were speaking. It's by no means annoying, but would have been nice. Lovepical Poppy is a good visual novel, and in comparison to many moege I've read, it sits up there with some of the better ones. I think earlier SMEE titles are more consistent in their writing, but fans of them absolutely should not pass this one up. As a relatively new publisher, I look forward to what Kagami Games brings us in the future. Give me your thoughts below on which heroine you think looks the best, even though we all know it's Tamaki. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you next time.